Welcome back to the series on standardizing your assemblies. In this video, we will focus on the levels of prefabrication. As discussed in part 1 of this series, there are 3 levels or tiers of prefabrication. Tier 1, off-site construction, job shop. Tier 2, prefabrication. And Tier 3, construction manufacturing. Once you understand the levels of prefabrication, you can begin to decide which level you want to begin at and make a goal of which level your company wants to achieve. Each level will allow you to dive deeper into prefabrication that will allow your prefabrication department to be more efficient and profitable. Let's take a look at the different levels of prefabrication. Tier 1 is typically the first step in the process of adopting a prefab strategy. This tier is usually driven by the field leadership on a job-by-job basis. The general idea is to identify repeatable activities and move them into a shop or warehouse environment. The assembly process or tasks performed to create the assemblies are often the same or very similar to the steps you would find in the field. The prefab orders typically come from interaction with field leadership. Although you may find some standard assemblies, the majority will be uniquely defined by the project team and may or may not be used on multiple projects. Tier 2 usually comes naturally as your prefabrication effort grows. This tier begins with evaluating your assemblies so they can be used across multiple projects, be easier to manufacture, be more cost-effective to deliver to the job site, and make installation safer. You will find that at this stage you will look to streamline or automate individual tasks to improve your assembly process. You will also start considering different materials or assembly structures as well. These new perspectives are about expanding the benefits that were gained for individual projects in Tier 1 to all your projects using prefabrication. This also allows you to see the economies of scale when considering materials and manufacturing cost. With standardization, you will also get the opportunity to introduce your assemblies earlier in the project cycle. Tier 3. At this level, you have standardized your assemblies to the point that they are defined products. They can be introduced very early in the project cycle. Once an organization reaches this level, they are typically capable of producing more than their company's project demand. To justify the cost associated with moving to this level, the organization often starts looking to sell their assemblies to other contractors. If we look at the typical flow from tier to tier, we will see how each tier builds on the previous tier. Tier 1 starts on the job site. The field looks for repeatable activities that can be prefabbed off-site, so the request comes from the job site. The assemblies are job-specific assemblies. As the process is evaluated, contractors can begin to determine which assemblies could be used on multiple projects. Different material or assembly options can be developed for each assembly. This will allow assemblies to be introduced earlier in the project cycle. Moving into Tier 3, the assemblies are further standardized and are defined as products. This will allow assemblies to be introduced at a very early stage in the project. Contractors can also begin to market and sell assemblies to other contractors. To summarize, knowing which level of prefabrication you're trying to achieve is a critical step in the process. As a side note, it is important to state that all departments should be involved in this decision and in agreement. Once the desired level is agreed upon, then plans can be made with all departments to achieve that level. For example, the BIM department can begin standardizing Revit families to include only standard assemblies. This will allow your prefabrication department to use the BIM model to determine what will be required at an earlier stage of the project, which will help ensure that assemblies are delivered to the job site at the appropriate time. Thank you for joining me for part 2 of this series. Join me for part 3 of this series as we discuss the basic manufacturing principles and how to apply them to your assemblies.